Now, probably a year ago at this point, I've already talked about the original Sonic Generations game, but as of late, we have now gotten the remastered, also expanded version of the game known as Sonic Shadow Generations, or Sonic X Shadow Generations. So, this is available on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch and PC. Now, for anyone that's wondering, or at least I keep seeing people asking, like, how is it remastered and it looks identical? Well, the game is now played in 4K 60 frames. Not that the original version on Xbox 360 can also be played in 4K in 60 frames now with the FPS boost thanks to the Xbox backwards compatibility. Let's just get this out of the way. Now, you're just getting two games in one package here. You're getting Sonic Generations and you're getting Shadow Generations. So I'm just gonna cut to the chase right here. Is that for anyone that missed the pre-ordering the casino pinball level, it's pretty much intact in this game. So for those who have missed it, you can play it. You can actually play it in this game. So at least it's cool that they brought something that's bundled in there. Yeah, and I am aware that the casino pinball level is bundled on Steam, but sadly, I never pre-ordered the game, and for anyone that missed pre-ordering the game for the PS3 or the Xbox 360, well, it's deemed unredeemable at this time. So, sadly, there was no separate DLC for the game to be available when it comes to the casino pinball, and I'm thankfully gonna say that it's available for anyone who's missed it. So, if you guys ever feel like playing a pinball game on a Sonic, you can. But don't worry, this isn't the first time that Sonic had a pinball level. So let's talk about the game itself. Shadow Generations starts you off at Ark, investigating something going on in the space colony Ark. But it turns out that Black Doom is once again alive and he's trying to destroy the world. And it's up for you to stop him. So how will you stop him? Well, you play as Shadow, of course. You travel back in time to play these older game levels from Shadow Hedgehog, Sonic 2006, Sonic Heroes, and strangely, Sonic Forces and Sonic Frontiers, considering this is a prequel to those games, which make no sense if you think about it. I have no idea why, but that's it. That's all it is. But there are a couple of bosses from the past games that you may be pretty much be familiar with. But I won't say nothing about those guys. But there is a hub world just like in Sonic Generations. But it's actually fully 3D this time in the opposed of 2D this time. There's collectibles you guys can get like bolts. Or in terms of getting the levels, in terms of playing levels, there's these coins that are floating around that can pretty much unlock music, artwork, and playing more. But you need the coins in order to do such thing. Now, in some of the levels too, including the hub world, Shadow can use Chaos Control for a temporary time for about like 5 seconds each or whatever. But you need a certain meter to fill it up too. Now, the thing is that there's these little pods that you can also have a refill all the way up and whatever. They can also not just stop time for enemies, but they also stop the game's clock as well. So it's living up to its name. It's not the first game in the series to have Chaos Control, as the original Shadow the Hedgehog game also implemented it, but it was a little bit more longer than this game. Oh, and I'll tell you something hilarious. You also rescue Big the Cat. And yes, he's still looking for Froggy after all these years. But the gameplay is pretty identical as the original Sonic Generations. But if you feel like playing the old controls that they had on the PS3 and Xbox 360, you can also enable it to do such thing as well. And just like the original game itself, they got challenge levels, which you'll need to complete in order to unlock boss keys. And that's pretty much about it. So what's also new is that Shadow now has abilities to learn, like he can fly, shoot multiple enemies with this, whatever it is, but you get the point. you get these abilities by defeating bosses and basically defeating minions, whoever you find in these levels. And yeah, there is a PlayStation exclusive level or whatever from what I've heard, but that was about it. But I think that was just meant to promote the Sonic 3 movie. And there was also an exclusive movie episode that you guys can pretty much watch. But yeah, that's basically Shadow Generations out there. So, for those who've always been waiting for a new Shadow game, you should definitely get this one to check out. But for Sonic Generations in this game, well, I've already talked about it last year. And basically what I can just tell you is that it's basically the same game, but what caught me off guard was that they changed dialogue. Now, you think it'd be stepping backwards in terms of dialogue changes, but I've looked into this, and a lot of people seem to really give a positive feedback in terms of the changes that was made. Amy is not obnoxious in the original, and Sonic actually puts his friends first rather than later, as you would see. Now, I already mentioned you guys can play this in 4K 60 frames, which is a huge change in this one, unless you've already played the game backwards compatibility on the Xbox Series or the Xbox One X. But maybe it was just in 4K, but with the FPS boost being patched into the game, it would make sense for me to say it. But like I said, you could play the game in the newly traditional controls or the classic controls from the original Xbox 360 PS3 release. But they were just celebrating Sonic's birthday, and essentially the time to do this just came to ruin everything. And it's up for you to rescue your friends and restore your levels. But don't worry, you'll be doing the same thing in the Shadow Generations, but that's basically it. There's also a shop in this game where you can look, you can get some skills and whatever else. But sadly, for anyone that's looking forward to playing the original Sonic the Hedgehog 1, which was pretty much included in Sonic Generations, it's not on this remastered version, sadly. But at least you got your pinball level as it was in the original. Now, another change that was never in the original version is that you can now collect chows throughout the stages. Now there's 3 of them in each stage. One's at the beginning, one's at the middle of the stage, and one's towards the end of the stage. And I know this because the game tells you that one of the chows was in the beginning of the cutscene, which was never in the original version to begin with. So there's plenty of chows that you can pretty much collect. Each of them has like their own unique look. Kind of reminds me of the time where you make up your own looks in Sonic Adventure 2. But funny enough, there's actually some Sonic skins you guys can also get. For example, there was a pre-order for a Sonic Adventure 1 skin from the Dreamcast you can enable on Modern Sonic. And there was a Sega Newsletter skin for Sonic Jam skin, I think it's for the classic Sonic. But they don't work in cutscenes, but rather in gameplay. And there's challenges for you guys to get for boss keys, just like in Shadow Generations. And the game itself, you fight bosses, you get the Chaos Emeralds, and you fight the rivals, get more Chaos Emeralds, and then you put the stop to the end of the time dude. You can boost yourself with the amount of the meter that you fill by hitting enemies or possibly getting rings. But the weird thing is that this version removes the life bar count, or just, the 1-up count in this one, than the original, how it originally had it, which is weird. What I will say is that when it came to Shadow Generations, very little bit of the levels were also from the original 3DS version, but modified it a little bit to make it a little bit more different, including the Bio Lizard boss. So they have made some of their own changes from scratch. But yeah, that was the thing I want to mention, that the 3DS version of Sonic Generations is also completely different in terms of bosses and level changes. As I already talked about that one too. It's not the best version, but I thought it was out there just to let you guys know that those have different levels on the 3DS version. But I think that'll be it for the coverage of this one. Now, for those who've already played Sonic Generations, well, you guys can also pretty much now experience the game in a slightly different way. Not just the dialogue change in the game, but also the Shadow Generations, which I'm sure most of you guys are going to be there just for that one right there. But unless you missed the casino level, then you can pretty much now play in that one. But for anyone that's got a PlayStation console, then you'll be able to play a little bit more content than what we all else got it for. But I think that's about it. So, who else grew up on Shadow the Hedgehog? And who else grew up playing Sonic Generations when it first came out? But if you guys just want to relive the experience in 4K 60 frames, then you guys can also do such thing.